So today will not be a Predator or even a figure review entirely. So today I will be ranking my top 15 favorite Predators in my collection. So without further ado, let's start with the honorable mentions first. So first up will be the honorable mentions. So for honorable mentions, I will include a couple that I don't own yet, so it's sort of a bit of a cheat. So in my honorable mentions, to cut it short, or to put it simpler, my honorable mentions will have a couple figures, not a couple, many figures that I don't currently own yet. So yeah, let's begin. I will show some pictures as I explain each one. First would be the most wanted that I don't have yet. That's on my honorable mentions as of right now. Is the Scarface Predator, or the Concrete Jungle one. A really cool figure, very beautiful sculpt. I really want it. Yeah, you really want it. So up next would be the Deluxe Clan Leader, the Kenner one. I really like the figure. Very rare piece. Also looks very awesome. So up next on my honorable mentions that I don't own yet is the Stalker Predator, the glow-in-the-dark version. A really cool-looking Predator, really cool-looking mask, and I really like the combi sticks. Might use those for display. Since he has two of them, I might as well give a couple to my other Predators. So up next on that list is what's his name? Spike Tail. Yeah, I also really want Spike Tail for the really cool robotic design he has. So yeah, and then up next would be the version 1 Jungle Hunter. I do own the version 2 Jungle Hunter, but something about the coloring on that one is a bit off. Even if you look at the box, you'll notice something is off about the paint of the figure. Nothing wrong with the sculpt, but the paint on it looks very rusted, if that makes any sense. So up next on that list would be the City Demon. If you're wondering what that is, that's basically if you own the Jungle Hunter, like the very old one, you know what I'm talking about. It's a sort of translucent. It's sort of the camouflage-looking Predator, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's that one. And then up next would be the what's the name of that figure again? Alright, I forgot the figure's name. Oh, and up next would be the Shaman Predator. I do really want the Shaman Predator. Looks really cool. Shaman and Warrior. Let me just add Warrior as well. Those two are probably some outside of obviously Elder. Outside of Elder, those are probably some of the coolest looking from the Lost Tribe to own. So yeah, so now with those over, let's get on with the actual figures from the honorable mentions that I do own. So first up is Badblood. Really cool figure, just very lacking in accessories for me. So yeah, he was just lacking a bit in accessories for me, and there's just a bunch of others that I like personally a lot more, despite his very dark and very outcast design. I prefer I don't like, while I like the design, there's just a lot of figures that I prefer the design of more, or either more rare than this figure. So yeah. And then up next I have Ghost Predator. So Ghost Predator would be on the top 15 if it was not for the fact that he has a bunch of QC issues, like the fact that you can't see it right now because I took off the plasma caster, but the plasma caster had the actual caster itself, the thing that you use to shoot, was wobbling a little too much. It was coming off, it was falling off. I did not like it, so I just removed the caster entirely. Did not throw it away, I'll still have it. I'll try to fix it someday, but yeah. And the fact that he was missing the knife. My fault, I bought it loose and pre-owned. I did not see the description properly. Did not see that it did not own. I did not see that it did not have the knife. I thought it did, so I was a bit surprised, but yeah. And the fact that it has a very big head. But I do like the figure itself. I like the biomass design and the head, because if you look at the head, it also has the orange eyes. Something I really like about it. And the mask, oh, that mask looks awesome. One of the coolest looking biomasks of a figure I've ever seen. Not really ever seen, but like, it's one of the cooler ones from the AVP ones. One of the cooler ones that I like. That is a detachable mask. And also the black wrist blades, and the very tiger looking design he has going on. Tigers are my favorite animals. White tigers, love them even more than the normal ones. So yeah, with these two being my honorable, so with these two and the rest that I mentioned a while ago being my honorable mentions, time to move on to the top 15. Starting with obviously number 15. So first up is Hornhead. Now Hornhead is one of my personal favorite designs because of the dual wrist blades as well. He's one of two predators that I know to have dual wrist blades. So yeah, a really cool designed figure, but Lord does the figure have a lot of issues. So first, let's talk about the issues that I have with him. His thigh really will not move. I did not, even though I submerged this guy in hot water for like a few minutes, I never got this unstuck. Like, I got the knee joints and even the ankle joints and the upper body joints unstuck. Like, even this thing is not fully unstuck. It's sort of having trouble to turn. I am not willing to risk. Okay, now it's loose. Okay, now it's not. Oh god. Okay, that popped right off. But yeah, as you can see, there's a bunch of issues with this guy. So the arm gauntlet just popped right off. I don't think that's broken though. My god. But yeah, so this guy has a bunch of issues, but the only reason he even made it onto the top 10 because of his personal design. One of my personal favorite looking characters of all time. And yeah, I don't know much about Hornhead aside from the fact that he was killed by Ahab in like really quickly. He is still a very cool looking figure and I really like him. It's just that if he did not come with all these darn QC issues, he would probably be one of my favorites right now. But because of all the issues, unfortunately, he doesn't scale up any higher. If it wasn't for his overall design, to be honest, he wouldn't even be here. So yeah. I know I'm ranting about how much I don't like the figure rather than how much I like it, but I really like the figure. It's a really cool looking figure, a very beautiful piece, just a lot of issues. But with that being said, since I do live in the Philippines, this thing's kind of hard to find. So like I said, I'm also basing some of this stuff off of rarity, how much I overall like it, and design, and overall as a figure. While he doesn't scale too high as a figure, he is pretty rare in the Philippines at least. I've never seen him being sold here, and the fact that I really like his design. So yeah, now let's move on to number 14. So now for number 14, which is sort of surprising even for me, is Chopper. So why do I say Chopper at 14 is surprising? Because he's an AVP Predator. And if you've seen some of my videos, you know I value these guys a lot because of how rare they are. This thing was extremely hard to find for me. I got lucky, got him for a pretty decent price. The guy was selling them. They're loose, but they came with boxes. So, yeah, as you can see, I'm really happy to own the guy. A very rare piece, I should sort of say. He's very expensive nowadays, so yeah. But at the same time, there's a lot of things about Chopper I like. Obviously, it's the design as well, but there are a couple things I don't like about him that made him rank low, such as the gauntlets. I do not like this design of wrist gauntlets, to be honest. I prefer the more traditional dual blade one. I'm not dual blades. I prefer the traditional wrist blades like this over these. They look a bit wacky to me, and for some reason they're at a weird angle. As you can see, they're not under the forearms. They're sort of lined up with a. Yeah, it's sort of weird because if you actually straighten the fist and the forearm, they're sort of poking out like this. So you sort of have to always pose it like this to make it look somewhat decent. But yeah, I do like a lot of things about Chopper, including his design. Obviously, I love the AVP Predator design, and the two twin skulls that he has. And another thing that I will give him credit for is his biomask. Looks very unique compared to the others, certainly, but it is a bit alien, like in a way. Like, it doesn't look natural compared to the other biomasks. So yeah, but he has really cool design, really cool as an overall figure, very rare piece. But yeah, just one of my personal favorites not just one of my personal favorites among Predators. Well, he sort of is. He's made it to my top 10. So yeah. But yeah, he's a really cool figure. It's just that he has a lot of things that I don't like about him. He just has many things that I don't quite like about him. Okay, I need to word this more clearly. It's just that he has a lot of issues compared to the others, or he just doesn't have my personal favorite design. So yeah, so this is Chopper at number 14. Now let's move on to number 13. So now this is number 13 for me. Number 13 would be the Jungle Demon. Another thing I really like about this is the paint. Obviously, it's mostly translucent with some jungle green paint on it to sort of emulate like leaves and stuff. So yeah, and the glowing yellow eyes I also really like about it. One of my all-time favorite Predator designs, hands down. By the way, Predator figures and Predator designs are a bit different for me. I'd probably prefer designs. Let's just give me a different list, so yeah. So this guy is a very beautiful sculpt and paint everywhere. Sure, it's on the sort of old school jungle hunter body, but damn does it look good. Kind of, these things are just pegs, right? Oh no, they are not on pegs. Anyway, yeah. I really like the figure because of his design, obviously. And the only reason he's very low is because of the fact, no accessories, once again. No accessories, and I sort of just got him like this. This is sort of just what you get, just the plain figure. Not a plain looking one, I just said a plain one. There's no accessories, it just comes with 2 hands, and that's, what kind of hands are these? Oh, these are just on peg, what? So yeah, he is sort of on an older body, which still utilizes the peg system. So yeah, but the paint on this thing is overall phenomenal. I'd probably get this guy displayed with the City Demon if I ever get my hands on that. That would be a pretty sick display. That would be a pretty sick looking display. So yeah, overall one of my favorite Predator designs. Very cool looking figure, obviously, with all the paint, but just a bit lacking overall as a figure. But overall, love the piece. Now let's move on to number 12. So up next on the list would be Temple Guard. Also, the only one of the few Predators on the top that did not make it into the top. What do you call it? Not make it into the top 10. But yeah, Temple Guard is a really cool looking figure, just albeit not one of my favorite designs from the Predator, from the AVP line. It's a very cool looking figure, but something about the design, something about the copperish color I did not like. And once again, I am not a huge fan. I'm not a fan of the wrist blades entirely. I do not like this design at all. But that does not take away from the fact that this figure, very pleasant to look at. He just sort of really reuses Chopper's body mold a little too much. Down to the legs, or the lower body without the spiked foot and the wrist blades. So, yeah, sort of a bit of a nope from me. But overall, it's still a cooler looking figure than Chopper, I'd have to say. And, okay, this thing keeps on falling down. Might have to interchange it with the other hand. But yeah, it's also one of the earliest AVP ones I had. One of the first. In fact, this thing is, I think, the third one I bought. Because when I bought this guy, I initially bought the Elder Predator at a con, and then later I found the shop from the con, and I decided to buy the others, and I bought this guy and Unmasked Scar. This guy was there. So yeah, very cool looking figure. I really like him. But yeah, just that he's a bit lacking in design for me and accessories as well. But overall, really dope figure. Would highly recommend him. I also like the biomask on him. The very eagle-like design he has going on looks very nice. And it also helped that his name Temple Guard, so he's like a guardian. That's very awesome. So now let's move on to the next number. And then now number 11. So number 11, also a bit of a surprise to me considering he's one of the earliest Predators I owned. Even as a Predator, he was one of the earliest I owned. Like, even not as an AVP Predator, but as actual Predator figure, he was one of the first I owned. So yeah, I'm not sure why I did not place him any higher, but it's just that I'm not a big fan of the unmasked head, and the fact, I do not know why Predator companies do this. They put the very open hand with the wrist blades. I do not know why NECA did that. It makes it look very ugly. Not gonna lie, it doesn't look well. Like, even if this was a partially closed hand, like the gripping hand, that would have looked so much better. You could have just swapped the hands and, would have looked so much better. But yeah, I did not like that design choice, and I also did not really like and while the unmasked head does look cool, it's open mouth. I am a fan of those. I prefer, but I do not have a way to pose this guy with the arms sort of spread out, so yeah. But yeah, overall, a really cool figure, one of the very first in my collection, so it definitely has a special place in my heart, honestly. But just as a figure, he did not really like even though he technically seems the exact same design with Unmasked Scar. I prefer Masked Scar's overall paint scheme, and I say paint scheme because Masked Scar is a bit lighter than this guy. Like, if you see, this guy is very dirty and grimed up. I prefer Masked Scar's design, and I also really like the mask design on him. While Unmasked Scar looks really cool, yeah, I'd have to. He ranks, unfortunately, a bit low in my top 15. So yeah, now time to move on to number 10. Now starting my top 10 from this top 15 would be Alpha. So Alpha, like some of the figures here, hold a special place in my heart since he was one of the earliest ones I owned. But I will say Alpha has a couple of issues. So one, as you can see, he's leaning a bit forward, and he's a bit difficult to stand. I do not know why. When this thing first came out, like a couple years ago, not really a couple, just like back in 2018, which is already a couple, I'd say. I got this guy back in 2021. No, not 2022 actually, I should say. But yeah, when it was first released, everybody was going crazy about the ankle joints. I do not know why. The ankle joints of this guy are honestly horrible. He can barely move, and he has difficulty standing because of it. And he also shares a very similar body, I have to say, to the AVP ones, which might have helped me a bit, like him a bit. But yeah, as you can see, he's falling off. He's a lot of issues with this guy. And the staff, he can't even hold it properly. So yeah, but other than that, a very cool concept and design by NECA. One of the overall coolest predators I've had, and I've really also like the biomask he has. The very animalistic look he has, and the very primal look that he has, also very cool, I'd have to say. Yeah, just a very cool concept and design overall, but while he does come packed with accessories, it's just something about the foot and the fact that he can't stand properly, which bothers me a lot. So yeah, and the fact that he can't hold this thing as well is really bothering me a lot. But it's a really cool figure overall, and you can get him to some really cool poses and all. So yeah, that's why he ranks in the top 10. Look, just a lot better design, a lot better articulation than the ones below him. Yeah. Now let's move on to number 9. So number 9 is okay, might as well say that here. So number 9 would be, I would say, is a much more of a crowd favorite. In a sense, this would be Ahab. So why does Ahab rank so low on my list? Well, the figure, obviously a really cool figure, was very stumped and short. He almost had the same issue I had with Ghost, with the Ghost Predator. The Ghost Predator, which was on my honorable mentions. The issue with that one was the fact that his head looked a little too forward. Like, even if you look at the neck here, you'd notice the neck is not straight up. It's sort of protruding to the front, which I know a couple of Predators have, but his looks severe. Like, if I made him stand up straight, he would look very short. And this as well. This thing is a little too short, so in turn, his head articulation is a bit limited. I don't know why, but a lot of people love this figure. While I do honestly like it as well, it's not as good as some people would put it. They'd say this is one of the best Predators ever, and some people even put this on their top 10 lists of figures, not just Predator figures, of figures in general. I don't see the hype, but it's a very cool figure. It's just not that good. A bit overrated, I'd have to say. But he is fairly common to find and really poseable, so it sort of says a lot. Even though I'm trash talking it, the fact that it made it into my top 10 despite being very common and beating out a lot of rare and grails like the Temple Guard, the Badblood Ghost, and even Unmasked Scar and Jungle Demon, kind of says a lot, I'd have to say. Makes the figure a bit more impressive than I'd think, honestly. But yeah, still a very impressive figure, and yeah, and also a really cool biomask and head sculpt. But it's just that the figure design looks a bit plain, but he is packed with so many accessories. I can't deny that part. He has some of the best accessories of any figure I've ever owned, to be honest. So yeah. So that is Ahab for number 9. Now let's move on to number 8. So at number 8, one of the coolest, undoubtedly coolest Predator designs I've ever seen. What the hell is wrong with this thing? Anyway, is the Enforcer. God, do I love this figure. This figure has one of the coolest looking designs or color schemes of any Predator I've seen. The beige with the purple and the bright silver. Not really bright, it's more of a dirty-ish silver, but the way it just looks, it blends so well. So yeah, even though the accessories with this guy when I got him was a bit missing, he was missing the head, the alternate head, I should say. But God, is the figure itself very, really cool. And it also helps that this guy sort of has a nostalgia factor in it, because I remember a long time ago, I owned a NECA Predator. It was the Enforcer, though, version 1 Enforcer. Not sure if it was an authentic Enforcer or if it was a bootleg, for that matter, but regardless, it was one of the first figures I owned. Brings back so many memories now that I own the updated version, the cooler version, the better version. So yeah, brings back a lot of memories and also really cool. Also, he doesn't look as plain to me, at least to me. He doesn't look as plain as Ahab, which is why he beat him out by a bit. If Ahab just had a bit more design going on, he would probably be higher, but yeah, I really like the figure. The figure brings back memories and looks really cool. One of the best Predators I've seen, hands down. So with that being said, let's move on to number 7. So for number 7 is a bit of a shock. Is Elder Predator, because I initially said this guy was a top 5 for me. But after looking exactly at what others is above him, or what other figures I have in the list, I just realized, yeah, no, he's definitely number 7. Initially, these guys had no ranking. I sort of just had to make a rank off the top of my head, but this guy, yeah, I unfortunately had to put him at number 7. While, like I said, a very visually stunning Predator figure, quite an annoying one. In my review, if you've seen it, which I uploaded a few hours ago, or technically yesterday, since I'm filming this at like 3 a.m., the spear on this guy breaks a lot. And to keep the mask on, the reason why the mask is not falling off or looking too weird or ugly is because of the fact that I had to put some sticky tack on. So you sort of need to do other things to make the figure look somewhat better. And the fact that the spear broke on me so many times was annoying. And the lack of accessories as well. There's a lot of things in my review that I forgot to mention, that I should have. He's missing a plasma caster and he's missing the knife sheath. The knife sheath that he had, he's missing the knife accessory that most AVP Predators are fashioned with. So yeah, those are a lot of things. And a couple of other things, like him breaking a lot, is the reason he unfortunately had to make it to number 7. He would have been higher with a bit more accessories. But yeah, so still a cool figure, pretty rare, and a pretty rare piece. Considered one of the grails of Predator figures entirely. So yeah, so this guy's number 7. Now let's move on to number 6. So for number 6, just under the top 5, I have, what's his name again? Is the Ancient Warrior. One of the, I keep saying one of the earliest, because to be fair, most of these figures I thought were pretty early, like Ahab, like figures like Ahab the Elder, and the others were pretty early releases, to be honest. But my God, is this one of the best ones. At first I initially did not really have, this guy was initially my top 1. Before I got Serpent Hunter and the others, this guy was going to be my top 1. That's how good of a figure he was, but for a while I started to hate this figure, and then I ended up really liking it. Yeah, it's sort of weird. But yeah, he was initially my top 1 Predator because of his overall design and look. I really like the bluish tint the bluish color scheme he has, and also the mask. The mask design, one of the best in the NECA and one of the best of the NECA Predator line entirely. One of the best masks I've ever seen. It's just very, it's very simplistic and pays homage to the original mask without looking too much like it. It's still, while it's obviously similar, while it's referencing the original mask, it's still its own thing, if you know what I mean. So yeah, very cool figure. It's just that he's also a bit lacking in accessories, and yeah, the skull he has, he does not come with a skull I have him holding. This is the engineer skull that came with Ahab. So yeah, and also the spear on mine broke too many times. there was a time when it broke, I just lost it and now crumbling into like 3 different pieces. So I tried to keep the pieces, but I guess the wind blew away the smaller ones. So now I have to get another spear. Probably just a bootleg. I'll probably just buy a bootleg spear for this guy. So yeah. Well, it's a very cool piece without a doubt. There's just others that have better accessories and look a lot cooler to me, I have to say. So now with that being said, now we're gonna move on to number 5. The top 5. So at number 5 is the Elder Greyback Predator. Boy, when I first saw this at Green Hills, you will not believe my reaction. I saw him, I was surprised because I did not see any other shops selling him. So I was like, asked how much, they're like, yeah, that's the last. I got it for cheaper than normal because I got it literally when, like, they received it the same day, and I asked how much it was. They're like, yeah, we're selling it for, it was a lot cheaper than what they initially sold, than what they sold it to the other people for. So I got really lucky with them, and just, even though I don't really like the Golden Angel that much, well, obviously I like it, I own the figure. If I didn't like it, I would just sell him. But even though I did not like the Golden Angel that much, damn do I like the Greyback Elder. Something about the gray design he has all over him, just everything about the design I like. From the skull, not the skull, from like the sheath he has here, from the knife, the plasma caster, the gun, the head sculpts, even the unmasked one. I really like the unmasked one, and I do not like unmasked head sculpts. Usually when my predators, if you notice the rest of my list, except for Unmasked Scar and Badblood, none of them were unmasked. But even the unmasked of this guy, I like a lot. Yeah, just everything about him, from the gun to even the hair. The hair is also very pretty. Very similar to the head of the, what do you call it? Pretty similar to the elder hair from AVP. So yeah, I might do a review on this guy next, or soon, I have to say. So a really cool figure, one of my favorites of all time. Also really like the red eyes he has. Just about the design, the color scheme. Both the design and color scheme I really like about the figure. So yeah, that is why, not the only, that is why this figure made it onto my top 5, even though I had a bunch of grails right next to him. So yeah, now to move on to the top 4, and as most of you probably know, in this top 4, all of them, when I say all of them, I mean every single one of them would be AVP Predators from now on. So now, let's move on to number 4. So this is number 4. Now, number 4 was a very close call. It was between him and number 3. I had trouble switching between the two, because he is technically my favorite of the 3 AVP siblings. But just something about the design of the other hit a bit different compared to him. But with that being said, number 4 is Unmasked Scar. Unmasked Scar, one of the coolest AVP Predator designs I've ever seen. Despite it having the very bland color, the very bland sculpt, I have to say, it's still a very cool design. From the mask to the long wrist blades to the heavily armored look he has. Because compared to the others, he's very heavily armored. He even has the armor here, double armor on the legs, and the, what do you call this? The wrist spikes on his foot. Something like everything melts well into like a dessert paste. Like everything about this figure worked so freaking well, from the paint to the design. Everything on him worked perfectly. So I have to say, it's just that the articulation sort of was meh. I say sort of, but he had good enough articulation for the sculpt, and I got him for cheap, and he's one of the rarest figures on the market. I've seen this guy go for 150, even 200 occasionally. But yeah, very cool, very worthy figure, I have to say, of being in my top 4. Wish I could have placed him higher, since he is definitely the most similar looking to the OG Jungle Hunter. But yeah, I really love the figure. But unfortunately, he's at number 4. Either way, even if he made it to number 3, he would not top my top 2. So yeah, now time to move on to number 3. So number 3 for me is the Celtic Predator, or Celtic. Celtic does not matter. So yeah, boy, is this figure. Like I said, everything, this guy worked almost just as perfectly as Unmasked Scar, but like I said, I'm rating these things based off of 4 things. Overall design, overall being a figure, how much I actually like the figure, or the character in fact, which I don't think I mentioned, and rarity or price. This guy fits the bill. He has one of the cooler designs he's one of the coolest designs I've seen. Slightly like more than Unmasked Scar. I don't really like his character that much, but I liked it good enough for him to make it to the top 3. And the price of this guy was very decent, and it's very, very hard to find. I was looking. This guy was being sold for like 150, 100 plus dollars. A lot more expensive than even Scar is. Probably one of the more expensive ones behind Youngblood, Serpent, and Elder. Even more expensive than Ancient Warrior or Temple Guard, or even Unmasked Scar. So yeah, just a grail of a figure, and the biomask. That is one of the sickest biomasks I've ever seen. One of the best, one of the cleanest, one of the cool, one of the scariest, most menacing looking ones from the entire line. Not from the entire Predator line. Just one of the best. Absolutely love this figure. Everything about him. It's just that the top 2 will never be topped. I don't think I'll ever like a figure more than the top 2. The only but yeah, enough about the top 2. Enough about Celtic. So yeah, we're gonna now move on to the number 2. Boy, but everything about this figure, 10 out of 10. Except for maybe articulation, but yeah. So number 2. No way you did not see this coming. If you've seen a couple of my reviews, you know I explicitly mentioned this guy to be number 2, right behind a certain Predator. So a lot of things are to be liked about Youngblood. One, the very simplistic design, the very sleek silver he has, which I initially wasn't too much of a big fan of. I even sort of but I sort of said I kind of don't like it because it looks plain. But now that I'm looking at it, it looks very clean. It makes him stand out, makes him pop from the line. And also the biomask, very similar. Not even similar. It's actually identical to Scar's biomask. Now that I look at it, it's technically identical to Scar's biomask, but something about it just looks very clean, very sleek. And he also has the dual wrist blades, which really cool. So even if you did not want to display him with the alien combi stick, you could still display him with dual wrist blades, looking awesome. But with that being said, this is the real highlight of the figure. Is this thing, the alien head combi stick, the accessory that made this figure extremely popular in the first place. Something about the alien head stabbed through the combi stick. It's just something about the alien head being stabbed by the combi stick. Just looks so badass and menacing, especially the way you pose him. You pose him sort of like this, like he's sort of smacking against his chest. Boy, oh god, just everything about the figure worked so perfectly, even with the minimal amount of accessories. It was just right. Everything about it was just perfect. But with that being said, there is an objective, and probably a definitive number 1. This figure will never be knocked off from his number 1 spot. But number 1, without a doubt, is going to be Serpent Hunter. All the darn time. For everything from his sculpt, paint, design, just blends. It's just perfect. A lot. What I mean perfect, this thing is to me is the definition of perfection. The black color scheme he has, the alien head, the red bits everywhere, the unique looking loincloth he has, from the shin guards to the dual wrist blades to the just everything about the figure, like even the side pieces here. The fact that his color scheme is also not as dark as the others, like you notice that these are a bit light brown. Yes, it's just, boy, does everything work well for this figure. And not to mention a grail in the AVP world. This thing costs, the max I've seen this guy go for 300, 275. The price of this guy does not decline. I got lucky with a very nice seller who was willing to sell it for quite cheap. But yeah, damn, do I love this figure. Everything about it. I just like the design, the mask, the head, the wrist blades, this figure is perfection. One of the best figures I've ever owned. Even the articulation on this guy is very solid compared to the rest of the AVP line. So he has solid articulation, solid articulation, perfect, excellent sculpt, excellent paint, decent accessories, and it's just an overall really cool and grail looking figure. It's worthy of being called the number one for me. This is objectively the number one Predator for me. Like, I know other people may have different opinions. They may like the accessories, the sculpt, and blah blah and everything a lot more, and design, but nah, everything for this guy works perfectly for me. So with that being said, this concludes my top 15 list, with the Serpent head standing on top. So that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys really liked the video. And please do comment your top 15 or top 10 or top 5, doesn't matter. Just comment your top Predators of all time. And as you can see, this is the top 3 I have currently right now for the outro. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, please. Like I said, comment your top 10. I want to see your opinions.